I'd like to begin by calling the meeting to order, and I'd like to ask you to join us in a pledge of allegiance, please. Where's the flag? Over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'd like to begin with asking the board to vote on the minutes from the last meeting held on December 6, 2021. Do I have a motion? Second? Should I start again? Is everyone awake? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The minutes from the previous meeting have been approved. Just a quick note about the financial cash management investment policy. Originally, we had planned to vote on the revision to that policy today. However, even though the deadline for comments passed, we have received a number of additional comments from members, and we have not had a chance to discuss them and review them. So we're going to plan on taking the vote on the revision at a future meeting. And with that, I'll turn it over to our fearless leader and General Manager Jim Whitmore for his report.
Thanks, Mary. So obviously you can tell today we continue with the lifting of the indoor mask mandate. It's great to see everybody out and about again. And we have been pretty busy lately, so we enjoy seeing everybody out and about again. So we do recommend if you have any potential medical issues that you do still continue to wear a mask, or if you're unvaccinated as well. As of today, I'm happy to announce that there are no employees that have had any COVID symptoms and or tested positive for COVID. It's been about, I think, 3 weeks since the last time we had anyone that was that had tested positive. So we're very happy that we continue to all show up to work every day and continue to stay healthy. We are continuing to make some strides in hiring in the front and back of the house in the food and beverage area. We have been able to add 2 additional wait staff and 1 person in the kitchen. So we are looking at potentially expanding some hours again, especially in the grill. So that will hopefully be happening here in the next week or so. Look forward to putting some information out on that later this week or on the Sunday blast that we normally put out Sunday afternoons. We've also had every other Friday night music and every other Saturday night music, and all those events have been very popular and attended with quite a few. The first Friday night was crazy. Anyone who came to that one, I'm assuming that was because it was the first time anyone could get out for a long time. I think we had about 140 or 50 people. We were definitely over our capacity for the Blue Ridge Lounge as far as the fire department goes, but we shoot everyone around, and it actually went very well. Saturday night music has been well attended as well. And we've been starting to do other member events as well. We've had quite a few birthday parties, some anniversary parties. I think we had a couple people here had birthday parties. So we're adding those as well to our schedule, and happy to help out with those type of events if you have anything upcoming where you want to use the clubhouse for those. We've added also some additional wellness classes. They're being well attended. And my wife being one of them, she loves the Tai Chi, whatever that is. I don't pay attention to that stuff. So, and one of the things I'm most proud of, and I have all of you here to thank for it through our budget process of the 2022, we did just last week get our official certificate that we'll be putting up here in the clubhouse lobby to be recognized by the Living Wage Coalition of Transylvania County at their March 3rd meeting to be able to say, clearly state that we are a living wage employer here in the county. So that's an important tool not only for us, but for our marketing perspective of trying to attract potential employees to Conacy Falls. Unfortunately, I can't give a great update on the cell tower. I get a lot of questions on that. It's still the status quo of having about 2 providers that might commit. Through my analysis and doing some more digging, I have found out that there are 5 other potential sites within Transylvania County that are either under contract or have already sold potential to lease agreements with other providers. Whether they're all competing with one another, that's probably what's happening. So there's probably a need for 2, maybe 3. So someone's going to win, someone's going to lose on this whole deal. But we'll see how it plays out. But no matter what, if any of them go up, it's going to help. It's going to help. So we continue just to monitor what's happening with that. The Comporium fiber optic high-speed internet, everyone probably forgot that even happened a couple of years ago. But I can say at this point that pretty much we had almost $500,000 in lot sales last year. Most of them were on the west side. We had done a return of investment analysis, and that thing would be a 10-year return. Basically now a little over 3 years into it, the whole $900,000 has been recovered for that expenditure. I know we have a couple realtors here in the room that would tell you that was money well spent. Obviously, the pandemic helped us a little bit on marketing of lots, but it definitely had a huge impact on helping us sell lots before the pandemic even. Robert continues to work on our Wi-Fi hotspots, and we have quite a few pretty much in all the outdoor areas and indoor areas of the facility. You'll see it listed as CFPOA. Oh God, I forget. CFPOA. Open, that's it. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Mine automatically connects wherever I go. So that's good, and we'll continue to monitor those and make them stronger and boost them if need be. But it does create a nice safety barrier especially in all the outdoor locations. Also, which is good to hear, and this obviously helped again with the living wage. Security is now all fully staffed as well. They were short about 1.5 people for a little bit, but we've been able to fill all those positions. Mike West, the security chief, he has completed and submitted. I'm the one holding this up a little bit, but he redid all the post orders, SOPs, standard operating procedures, and a new training manual for review and comment by myself and Angie and HR. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll get together and get all that rolled out. And so this new in-house security is really been a big benefit and is helping us do a lot more internal things within the community than when we outsourced it. You've all probably noticed a portable speed limit sign that we've been moving around the community. It is interesting when you start getting statistics versus, hearsay. Statistically, 95% of the traffic that goes past that sign is going, 85% is going 25 miles an hour or less, 95% is going 32 miles an hour or less, and 98% is going 33 to 38. So it's about 1 or 2% of the overall traffic or drivers that are going over 38 miles an hour. We hear a lot of hearsay, they had to be going 50 or they had to be going 60. We have not had that. We had one supposedly that was going about 108, I think. But we've determined Robert's analysis of that was a bird probably flew in front of it. Because I don't even think that's possible. So anyway, we continue to monitor that. Right now, we're just going to continue to monitor it before we take the next step. At one point, we were talking about getting one of the units that actually takes a picture of the plates and actually able to do the fines and the whole bit. We're holding off on that because statistically right now it's showing that that's, it might be a problem, but it's not as big a problem as some may think it is. But there is some speeding, obviously, throughout the community because 35 to 38 is still, speeding. But how you go 35 or less down Conacy Trail in that one location, I haven't figured that one out yet, but unless you hold your brakes the whole time. We continue to add cameras as well through the community, not to spy on you, but just to help us have information. And I think glad to know that Robert's been doing very well at this. And any incident we've had, whether it be around the main gates, around the clubhouse, around any of the parks, if we get information from a resident that sees something and then give us a, give or take time and a give or take, color, whether it's a black car or someone wearing a gray coat, we can pretty much track that down within minutes of what really happened. So That's a huge advantage we have now. And it's all mobile app. I can view any of these cameras from my phone, and the guardhouse, main guardhouse, can view any of them at any given time as well. So we will continue to do that, add additional cameras. We're talking about one down the dog park and organic garden area, and we're talking at another one down by the tennis courts as well. From a financial position, year to date through February, we're about $41,000 better than budget, which is pretty much a miracle. We've been really lucky at the committed staff and us trying to be a little bit more creative and doing things a little differently to try to make up for obviously the inflationary things that are going on right now, the supply chain issues that are going on right now. It's pretty difficult to operate on a normal basis. Even something as simple as a kitchen ordering food. They'll order filet today at whatever price it is. When it's delivered, it's that price plus another $2. And the question is, they just say, do you want it or do you not want it? That's really the question. Or you ordered 10 pounds of broccoli and we only get 4, or whatever it is. That's just sort of a way you have to do business now. And we just, work with it and do the best we can. But, we'll continue to find ways to offset as many of the costs we can. I wrote this, earlier last week, and then, with the gas price thing, who knows how that's all going to play out. But that's going to be when they talk about trickle down, that's definitely a trickle down, because that's going to hit whoever it is at some point. So we'll see. But we did a lot of, Spencer especially does a lot of proactive things. He came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, I got a notice from Vulcan, we get all our asphalt and gravel down there in Penrose. And they said, hey, starting April 1st, gravel is going to go up 20%. So I said, well, start your trucks going. And we loaded up as much, because we go through about 5,000 tons of it a year. So we're stockpiling. If you see some areas that are not normal, that you'll see some gravel stockpiled up, that's what we're doing. We were able to purchase gas about 30 days ago. He came in and said, hey, we can pre-buy from Henderson Oil. And, that's always a risk, but, we were pretty educated that it wasn't going to go down, we didn't think. So we were able to lock in like a $3.89 all the way through July. So we've got that price locked in as well. So hopefully by July, it will start coming back down again. If it goes below $3.89 between now and July, we lost the deal, but that's why they call it future investment. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. The auditors have been here already. We're supposed to get the draft audit report back March 16th, which is this week. The audit committee will meet shortly thereafter. And then we will submit it to the board for approval, and it'll be posted on the website shortly thereafter. As everyone in this room also knows, the assessment was billed out and due at the end of February, everyone's favorite time of year. Happy to say that I think this number is even higher now, but as of the other day when I wrote this, 98% of the accounts are all caught up and paid. There is an impact, obviously, with potential revenues coming in with the amenity fees and home sales. Right now, we've collected 7 amenity fees were collected in February and 2 only in January. It's only 9. This number is probably wrong. I know Jordan's in the audience, but at the time I wrote this, there was 13 homes on MLS. No, how many now? 5. So there's 5 on MLS right now. So we had made an adjustment that we thought we might only do, say, 80 resales this year as opposed to 160 last year. Whether we'll get to 80 or not, I don't know, but it's going to be close, probably. Best case scenario. We're going to go on that later, so I don't need to talk about that. Atagahi Park project, my favorite project. It is moving along. The asphalt plant's supposed to open April 1st. Once that's open, we'll get everything re-asphalted. The newer pavilion is getting the electrical hooked up to it today. So we'll hang the fans and the lights probably later this week. They all been repainted. The old one was repainted and new shingles put on it. We're waiting on the gutters for it. And then the final concrete pour in the barbecue area, where we've restained the outside of the restroom facility. We've repainted the inside, power wash and repainted the inside. So all we'll be waiting for is the asphalt. Once that's done, we'll be in good shape. The asphalt project does include tearing out the old basketball court and resurfacing that as well. And we're going to add a sand beach volleyball court there also. Almost done. Bocce courts. We are in the middle of renovate. Well, I shouldn't even say renovating, rebuilding the bocce courts. We dug them all the way out, broke down the slab that was the old shuffleboard slab because they basically built that over a concrete slab. That's why it didn't drain real well. So we broke out all the old shuffleboard concrete, bought dirt in. Now we're putting put new drainage in, and now we're re-graveling and putting the playing surface on. Probably, well, it's supposed to rain Wednesday and Thursday. So sometime by the end of next week, hopefully we'll be done with the bocce courts. It may be another couple of weeks, but I don't think their events start till late April, so they should be in fine shape by then. Pickleball courts are now in the process of getting scheduled. We did have a little hiccup there when we got the estimate on the pickleball courts back in September before the budget. The number was $78,000 to do them. When it came in to start getting ready to do it and give us the actual bid price, it was $130,000. So we said, well, that's not going to work. So we reworked the agreement and contract with Wayland, who's done all our work. And that's what's really good about us. We have good relationship with our vendors. We looked at some areas that we could help them out in, some other areas where we could help them with material costs that they're quoting out because they're using their providers. We had some different providers. And then we're going to do a little bit more of the demo and prep work than we were originally planning to do. So that will help. And now the number came in at 92. So still quite a bit higher, but at least in a range that makes it doable. And Natural Resource Committee, Mary's going to talk about that a little bit in the presentation. One other thing, some of you may have heard, we did have maybe over the last 6 months, 3 or 4 pretty significant A&E violations that occurred. All of them were related to removal, not just cutting, but cutting and removal of trees, lots of trees that were not approved or permitted. One of those ended up getting a $10,000 fine. The other 2 had a $2,000 fine each. And all 3 of those have remediation that still need to be completed. That is basically replanting, and that was just held off to getting the right planting material and weather. I think April 1st is a deadline for all those people to remediate their violations. So we'll know a little bit more on that. If they're not remediated at that point, it's a $100 a day fine until they decide to mediate it. So with that, I will turn it back over to Mary.
Thank you, Jim. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone. Just not to embarrass anyone, but is there anyone here that's, I'm sorry?
Can't follow you if you're gonna walk.
Oh,
I have to walk around. I need steps. I'm only on like 1,200 steps today.
Can't follow.
I'll try to stay still. Anyone who is attending the board meeting for the first time? Well, welcome. Thank you. Are you new to Conisty? Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I'll try to stay still. No promises.
Want to share?
Yes, please. Thank you. It's like telling me I can't move my hands. I'm Italian. I can't talk. I'll try. Yeah, I'll try to stay here. How's that? So just briefly, some of the initiatives that I'll touch on this afternoon. We'll start with access control. Go back one for me. Activity and Wellness Center opportunities, brand marketing, care for our natural environment, what we call the ITSO task force, IT Security and Operations Task Force. Finally, we'll give a brief financial update and the treasurer's report. And then once we're finished, we'll take questions from members. Next slide. So access control, Jim touched on this a little bit before when he talked about some of the ongoing monitoring. Previously, access control was one of the board's top initiatives. And once we did a year-end review of all the goals versus the accomplishments, we made a decision that it was time to move the functionality of the access control initiative, because it's no longer a project, to becoming part of operations. So now that has been moved under Jim's day-to-day jurisdiction. What's still going on is there's continuous monitoring of the new annual guest program. Those of you remember last year, we did an analysis of all the permanent guests that we had, and we had something like over 1,600 people that had access to the community 24/7. So we implemented this new annual guest program, and we continue to monitor that for trends. And if there's something that we see that maybe needs to be revisited, we'll do so. And as of this morning, I think we had 72 still. Sharon, that sounds like a good number. Great. And should we decide to make changes, we'll update the membership as needed. Next slide. All right, Activity and Wellness Center opportunity. Jim, again, also touched on some of these ongoing changes that are happening. So I won't spend too much time on them. Some of the road work, we plan to pave the parking lot that's across the street, and that'll provide more parking once Attagahee gets a little more crowded than it is right now. The paved walkway, the upgrades to the basketball court, volleyball playground, and the horseshoe pits. And then hopefully, barring no unforeseen circumstances, we hope to be ready for Memorial Day weekend with all of these upgrades. Some other things that are going on, the Cherokee Room expansion is in the design and cost estimate phase. We're also looking at possible repurposing of the equestrian center. And then, as Jim mentioned, the bocce court drainage issues are being addressed. And then I know that's probably why most of you are here, is to get the sneak peek on the Activity and Wellness Center. So I'll turn the next couple of slides over to Jim so he could walk you through some of the floor plans as well as share an aerial view.
So basically what we're looking at is, let me stay in one place. I'm worse than Mary is. If anyone has been here maybe 3 or 4 years, you may have seen the last potential A&W that was adjacent to the clubhouse over by between the clubhouse and the pool. That was a 3-story building. We're looking now at doing a 2-story building. This would be the first floor. The 2-story building is approximately 12,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet. 6,000 square feet on the first floor and around 6,000 square feet on the second floor. The first floor would consist of, on the right-hand side here, the new actual fitness equipment room, which is almost 2,000 square feet, which puts it at twice the size of the current fitness center. So you would have enough room here for a bunch of new and improved equipment, as well as an area dedicated for stretching and free weights as well within this fitness space. In the center area, that would be your lobby, and you'd have access to this building from both the parking lot across the street here and from the clubhouse. Where we're looking at the location is basically directly between this clubhouse and the parking lot over there where this big knoll is right here. We'll show you that in aerial here in a minute. On the other side of the first floor would be your exercise room. This would be where your yoga, Tai Chi, whatever that is, Pilates, spin bikes, whatever you may want to use for what you traditionally would call an exercise classroom type space. And again, this is a little over 2,000 square foot. I think it's about 2,100 square feet, give or take. So that would be your first floor. The second floor, which would be your next slide, thank you, would be, again, the space would mirror itself. So up above the fitness equipment room, you would have 5 meeting rooms. One of those meeting rooms being sufficiently sized that we could put a divider in. I should say, let's do it this way. It's 4 meeting rooms, one of them large enough that you will have a divider in it that you could make that 5 meeting rooms if you had smaller meetings going on at the same time. All of these rooms would be able to accommodate, 12 to 20 people, depending on what the format is, whether it's for cards or small meetings, any type of meetings that would accommodate that type of size. Again, up in the middle side of this building, you'd have the lobby of the upstairs area. There'd be an elevator as well. Since it's 2-floor, we'd be required to have an elevator. And then the upstairs area above the exercise room would be what we're calling an activity room, which is basically a multi-purpose room that can be used for numerous options. And again, it's around 2,100 square feet. So this could be used for bigger meetings, classroom style events if we had speakers and so forth. If you had, arts and craft type scenario, you had quilting, all those type of things could be used in this room because it's strictly a multi-purpose room, but a large one. So it would also be decked out with multiple TVs or monitors so that you could have, if you had something like this room here, because it's about what the size of it is, you could have the presentations going on at the same time. Also in the first floor, just I forgot to mention as well, in the exercise room, we would have multiple monitors throughout this so that if you didn't have a physical teacher and people wanted to use it for online type classes, you could do that as well for virtual classes, which would be great as well, because that's really gaining in popularity, obviously, with the pandemic. But I think that's something that's going to stay. So because I don't have to be dedicated to say I have to be there at 9 o'clock, or 8 o'clock, or the time the class is. So, so that's basically what the building itself, floor plans, and how the building itself would be decked out. This is an aerial of the location of the building. You'll see here that even, oh shoot, I'm moving around. Even though this is a large building at 12,000 square feet or 6,000 square foot footprint, you'll see that it basically only takes up about half of the space of this area between the clubhouse and that parking lot. So there's plenty of area still available to either try to save as much of the, specimen type things. I know there's a couple big hemlocks we want to try to save, but also plenty of land around it once it's complete to re-landscape the building in a nice fashion. So it's just not a building sticking out in the middle of a big, plot of land. You can see all the green space that you still see around that even when the building is constructed. You'll also see on this overhead, we would also be adding additional handicap parking between the new building, potential new building, and the clubhouse. Anyone who is either handicapped or has anyone who has issues with, mobility, even though we do have handicap parking, it's really not what you would traditionally call handicap parking. It's still quite a bit of ways away from the actual parking spot to the front door of the clubhouse for handicap accessibility. So we're still putting budgets together. One of the things we are still trying to do is incorporate the pool enhancement project as part of the A&W. We're pretty confident on, as confident as can be right now, on numbers associated with the costs of the building and equipment. We sort of update those on a pretty regular basis, and we've been in the FPC, and Chip especially has been in contact with one of the potential contractors, and he gets updated information from them as much as he can. Most likely this building will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.75 million, give or take, decked out, turnkey with the landscaping, the equipment and everything. But we are struggling getting information from pool contractors. The pool companies are just not been very responsive. We did get a response finally back last week from one of the contractors who gave us a very preliminary concept, but we really want to meet with them beforehand and talk to them and get some better ideas of what can and can't be done as far as the pool enhancement goes. The investigation we had done a couple of years ago on the last go around on the A&W, we did have a number of around $1 million for pool enhancement. So we're looking at potentially like putting a number, an estimated number for pool enhancement about 1.25 million. So potentially The A&W project as a whole would be roughly in the $5 million neighborhood, which we would then obviously have to go out for members to vote on. But there would be no assessment associated with it because we do have enough sufficient funds in our amenity fund to either pay for the whole thing up front or to pay for a large portion of it and borrow some money against future amenity monies coming in so that the future buyers are paying for some of it as well. So we're talking about all that now, but that's a basic proposal in a nutshell at this point. And we're hoping to by, like I say, depending sometime in April. I don't want to get too good, but mid to late April, having a probably several town hall meetings to do a presentation on the final, what we finalize on the A&W. We'll probably do that over a 2-week period, have some, morning and afternoon or morning and evening sessions so that everyone, if they want to come to a presentation, they have the ability to do so. So we want to, do that over a 2-week period. So if someone says, well, I'm not going to be in town that week or whatever, but any of those will be at least one, if not multiple, those will be also videotaped so that we can, or YouTube like this, so someone can go back to the website and view the presentations if they want to do it that way as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Jim. Robert, can you just go back one slide? I just want to talk about the timeline a little bit more. So as Jim mentioned, today was really just the sneak peek to let you know what's going to come next. So hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we should have an official rollout to give a membership the opportunity to see the full proposal on the Activity and Wellness Center, as well as a preliminary pool design. Host chat sessions as needed. We're putting together a frequently asked questions flyer that we'll make available to the membership. And then in terms of what happens next, we'll have to hopefully be able to bring it to the membership for a vote by June of this year. And provided there aren't any unforeseen circumstances, we hope to break ground within a few months after that. And then the total construction time should be roughly anywhere between 9 to 12 months. And then the pool would be available for this summer as well as next summer, with the targeted starting of construction in the third quarter of 2023, which may sound like it's a long way away, but it's really just a little over a year from now. Next slide. So Care for Our Natural Environment was also a board initiative that has carried over into 2022. There's a lot going on with the formation of the new Natural Resources Stewardship Committee. They are currently actively working on a number of different initiatives besides collaborating with the consulting firm that we hired, Equinox Environmental, who's currently conducting a field mapping of our entire 1,800 acres. But the committee is in the planning stages of working on some community presentations and education seminars. So we're going to be starting with one on birds, one on bears, and wildflowers that you should be hearing more about in the next few weeks. And then in addition, the Natural Resources Stewardship Committee is in the process of scheduling meetings with a number of other committees and clubs so that they can seek input and work collaboratively together. God bless you, Bill. Next slide. So I mentioned the field study inventory is underway. I was hoping to include a picture or two from the wildlife cams that we had set up, but there was really nothing. I was hoping that they were going to capture a spotted skunk or something unique, but unfortunately it's just been what we know lives on our property. As mentioned before, we're looking at the 1,800 common area lots as well as lots that are currently owned by the POA. And if you haven't seen the information that was distributed yet on iNaturalist, anybody familiar with iNaturalist? So it's a free app that you can download to your phone. And you know how Shazam tells you who's singing and Merlin tells you what birds you're looking at? More or less, you take a picture and iNaturalist tells you whether you're looking at a skunk, a plant, a bird, etc. And we're encouraging members to get involved and record what they see in Coniston, especially if it's something that's rare. So Sharon has a number of those flyers available if you're interested to find out. Someone who was playing pickleball a few weeks ago texted me to say, hey, there's an eastern screech owl. He's just sitting on the side of the pickleball court. You have to come over. Of course, I didn't believe her, but I came over anyway, and I was able to capture a picture of him, and we uploaded it to the database. So we've got a picture of a really cute owl who was watching everyone play. So that was pretty neat. In addition to it's okay, you don't have to put it back. We'll also have a copy of the flyer on our website if you have any additional questions on how you can participate with using iNaturalist. So what's next? The committee plans to conduct a member survey of hemlocks on private lots and volunteer opportunities. I know we're all inundated with surveys, but it's really critical information if we're going to be in a position to help our property owners care for the hemlocks that are on their property. In addition to that, they're working on another survey to collect data on member perceptions and priorities. You know, what matters most to everyone? Do they have the tools and the information at their disposal to help them better be stewards of the environment and help them make better decisions? So look for that coming in the next few weeks. And then the first of the presentations on the birds and the bees and the bears and the wildflowers should start, I believe, the first week in April. So those excursions will go on throughout the summer. And then additional hemlock treatments will begin sometime next month, weather permitting. And I know we've sent out a big thank you to everyone who volunteered to treat the first round of hemlocks, but 1,031 hemlocks trees treated to date. I think we have a lot to be proud of. And it's going to continue through, not just through this year. This is something that we're going to incorporate going forward. All right, brand marketing. So we've got a lot going on there as well. We're about to launch the new brand look and language, hopefully by either May or June of this year. And the brand marketing initiative is going to be integrated, of course, with the strategic plan, and it'll be part of our decision-making processes for years to come. And we're also in the process of implementing the marketing and communications plan. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that involves on the next slide. Oh, no, I'm talking about the pocket folder. So right now, a number of you, if you pick up documentation from the admin office, as well as the information that's prepared for new owners, this will be what the new pocket folder looks like. Think we can get any money, Sharon, for the old ones? You think anyone will want them? What do you think? Next slide. So what's coming next? The targeted rollout, as I mentioned before, should be sometime in May. And what that'll mean to you is you'll be seeing some additional marketing material, like the pocket folder that we just showed you on the previous slide, as well as changes to the signage at the main gate, the East Fork gate, as well as the clubhouse. And then there'll be changes to the design for the public website that'll be rolled out first. And then the internal member website will be we'll be making changes later on in the year. And then you'll start to see, Robert, you're too fast for me. And then you'll start to see the brand identity on the menus, the staff uniforms, the merchandise in the golf shop, the vehicles, and guest passes. All right, so moving on to the ITSO task force, the IT Security and Operations Task Force. This was a new task force that we formed at the end of last year. And basically the charge for this task force was to make sure that our IT infrastructure was as secure as possible. I know that's very broad, and you could say, well, what does that mean? So the task force, the first thing they did was they documented an IT asset inventory. Is that what you showed me the other day, Jim, with like all the, yeah, very good. If anybody likes flow charts, you have to see what this looks like. It's very impressive. And then in addition, 2 months ago, they performed an IT penetration test to identify any potential vulnerabilities. Next slide, Robert. And we are in the process of outsourcing our IT help desk support later on this month. In addition, we're generating some network topography reports. And then we're also in the process of testing and documenting a new document storage solution so that those of us that serve on the board as well as the different committees will have a central secure data repository for all of our files, which not only is critical in terms of keeping the data secure, but it's also critical as members of these committees transfer on and off so that there's at least a central location where all this documentation is held. And then as we make changes, we'll keep the membership advised as well. All right, so I'm going to talk briefly about the investment policy. And before we start taking questions, I'll ask Jim Ungaro to provide a little more detail. But in February, the Finance Committee and the board proposed the revision to the financial cash management and investment policy that we distributed roughly 3 or 4 weeks ago, asking for member comment. And at a high level, basically, there are 2 major changes that are being proposed. The first one is to include expanding the allowable investment types, as well as engaging the services of a fiduciary advisor. And we're in the process of taking all of the comments and questions that we got into consideration before voting on the final revision. So this slide, this is one of my favorite slides. A few years ago, when I was still serving on the Strategic Planning Committee, I went in and I understood that from a financial perspective that we had a good amount of money in reserves. I knew there were like 3 or 4 accounts, but I really didn't know exactly what each one was used for or how the money went into it or what we did with the money. So Donna Aiken-Colflesh and the rest of the Strategic Planning Committee put their heads together and named this the Mary slide so that I could at least speak intelligently on how we use our reserves. So we're about to make a change to it once we adopt the real property fund, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So basically, especially those new to Conisty, we have 4 accounts that we put money in for reserves. So the first account is pretty self-explanatory. It's the amenity fund. And the way we fund it is with amenity fees whenever someone buys a new home. And then also the funding that we get when we sell a Conisty Falls POA-owned lot. How we use that money? Well, any type of construction, addition, or modification to any of the amenities comes out of the amenity fund. And then there's also an amount that comes out of this fund every year to fund operations. That was $75,000 last year. And Jim, it's 50 this year, 50,000. So that's the amenity fund, the capital reserve fund. Isn't it magic how the thing just follows me along and I don't even have to do it? Thank you, Robert. So the capital reserve fund, that's funded through our annual assessments, as well as interest that's earned on fund balances. How we use that money, that's specifically used to replace any physical asset that's valued at $2,500 or more and also has a useful life between 1 year, but less than 30 years. The infrastructure reserve, again, that's funded through the annual assessments that we take in. How we use it, maintenance of roads, dams, bridges, culverts, forest, and lake management. We've got 55 miles of roads, that's 110 miles of shoulders, storm drains, we pave our own roads, so a lot of use out of the infrastructure reserve funds. And then finally, the emergency reserve, again, is funded with the annual POA assessments, and that would be used if we needed to offset any unusual or unbudgeted expenses. Thankfully, we've never had to use the money in the emergency reserve, but it's there. Before Robert sends me to the next slide, just one quick thing I wanted to mention. Even though each of these reserve funds is funded well and has a specific purpose, there's a gap. And the gap is that none of these reserve funds specifically hold money to construct buildings, to repair buildings, to demolish buildings, make specific changes to buildings. Okay, Robert. Hence, the Finance Committee, with the support of the board, is going to present to membership a proposal to create what's called a real property fund. So the real property fund would be a sub-account under the existing amenity fund, and that specific account would be to replace and construct and maintain existing buildings. Keep me honest, how many buildings? 33 buildings we have currently, Jim? Okay.
Smaller outbuildings and everything else.
Yeah, so 33 buildings, and obviously they're not going to last forever. So having funding in this account will help us not have the need for special assessments going forward, because what we plan to do is start allocating a little money on a regular basis into these accounts. And Jim will talk a little bit more about what that looks like going forward. Next slide. All right, so the brief treasurer's report, this is unaudited for year-end 2021. So the total revenue that came in last year was 10.3 million, which is $1.6 million better than budget. Expenses of 5.7 million was 667,000 better than budget. And that was mostly due to the impact of the pandemic on payroll and the cost of goods sold savings that we realized. Golf had a good year. I think our revenue for golf was like close to $1 million, Jim. So that wound up being $165,000 better than budget. And obviously that's due to the condition of the course and the amount of rain we got, but overall we had a really good year. Food and beverage had a loss of 83,000, which was worse than budget. Again, there were impact from the pandemic. The wellness center had a loss of $50,000, which was worse than budget. And then the overall net result was roughly $1.2 million better than budget. And half of that was due to the CARES credit that we got because we kept our employees on payroll during the pandemic. So hopefully everybody can see this. I tried to make the fonts as big as I could. So cash and investments in the 1 millions, we've got 605 million for 2021, right? 600, sorry. You notice I kind of said it and went, is that right? Okay, I did it just to see if you were listening. So 605,000 as of close of business in cash holdings for 2021, and investments totaling $8,169,000 for a total of 8.7 million, as compared to 6.3 at the end of 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, you should feel really good about the fact that we've got this money saved for a rainy day with virtually no debt. However, the bad news is that the projected capital and infrastructure spending over the reserves over the next 10 years is estimated to be somewhere around $18 million. But the reason why we try to keep a healthy amount in reserves is so that members don't have to get hit with special assessments when moving forward and, taking care of what we own, basically, and also dealing with unanticipated events and circumstances. So next slide, Robert. Property sales data. I know Jim mentioned some of these numbers earlier in the report. So you can look at the comparison from 2021 to 2020. Homes sold was 167 homes, which resulted in roughly $1.4 million going into the amenity fund. Private lots sold, CFPOA lots sold, lot combination fees, as well as lots that were deeded to Conisty. And property sales data, continuing with some details. As I mentioned before, $75,000 comes out of that amenity fund to support operations, and that'll be reduced to $50,000 for this year. And Jim in his GM report also mentioned that we received a record number of $1.4 million in amenity fees, which I mentioned with the 167 homes sold, but 146,000 of that came from properties sold on the west side. And we also received $500,000 in Conisty Falls owned lot sales, of which 202 were from the west side. And there was a time, and as Jim mentioned, we've got realtors in the room who could tell you that I'm not making this up. We couldn't give these lots away because there wasn't internet, not even $5,000. So since the project, we're able to sell them for 30, 40, 50,000. So we were able to pay back the money that we laid out for the Comporium fiber optic project in 3 years instead of what we originally projected to take 10 years. So that feels good as well. And then the annual property fees, which is a combination of lot fees, A&E fees, building fees, and amenity fees. Did I forget any, Jim? He'll just yes me to death anyway. He's not listening. But that's what that's what's part of the annual property fees of 2.2 million, putting us 1.2 million better than budget. And with that, just a couple of quick remarks before I turn it over to Jim Ungaro, our treasurer for life. At the end of 2021, we're in really great shape financially. We've got strong liquidity, and I'd like to take a minute to thank our members, not only for your support, for putting your trust in us. Our finance committee, as well as all our other committees, work so hard and tireless to make the best decisions they can to help the board make decisions, take care of what we own, plan for our future. I think Craig Harding told me I was incorrect when I said that we had 130 years of experience on the finance committee in the finance, accounting, and legal arenas. I think he said it's roughly probably about 150 years of experience. So we're very fortunate to have not only the talent on the finance committee, but all of our other committees as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Jim Ungaro. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I'd just like to make a statement about why we're doing the investment policy. The proposed investment policy is a prudent approach designed to balance portfolio volatility risk against the risk of purchasing or loss through inflation. We believe the proposed policy is flexible enough to handle existing investment market and inflation conditions, as well as the future environment, whatever it may be. While our current investment policy is indeed extremely low risk, it does not allow investments that can help us defend against related reduced purchasing power. A key reason the proposed policy includes engaging a financial advisor is to continually analyze the current investment, recommend the best portfolio that meets our needs, and act in a fiduciary capacity to us. The proposed policy has been in discussion and draft for almost a year and is a comprehensive collaboration of the Finance Committee and the board with the consultation input from the financial advisor. The community has lost purchasing power in recent years due to inflation and extremely low returns under the existing investment policy. The implementation of this policy can help offset future assessment increases. And let me give you an example. If we have items in the capital reserve fund of $1 million that have to be replaced in 5 years, and we project out that we have 3% inflation in a year, in 5 years, it's going to cost us $1,150,000. That additional $150,000 comes out of the assessments. And if we can earn something on our dollars in addition to the low ones that we have right now, we can offset that amount of that increase in future years. Everybody knows that right now inflation seems to be on all of the news and in the newspaper, but it's been with us for a long time. And the current policy we have has not taken that into account. So every year we have more and more that we have to increase our assessments going forward. Any kind of additional return over, in some cases, we're getting less than 0.5% a year on CDs and money market accounts. This will help offset the future increases in the assessments we needed, because this is such a capital intensive community that we have a lot of assets with the $18 million that we're going to spend over the next 10 years. And that doesn't include anything for building replacements or additions. So I guess we're open to member questions if you'd like to move forward. We have a microphone in the back.
I think it's on. Yep.
Don't all run up at once.
I'm Cheryl Manzone, and I'm here on behalf of the Pickleball Committee, not with a question, but with a thank you. We sent you one in writing, but I wanted to just publicly thank you as a board for supporting the pickleball replacement project and funding it in full with the increase that was, just recently brought to your attention. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate it.
Nancy Sperling. I have two questions and one comment. The comment I'm going to say first. In our natural resources here, moss is a very, very important thing here, and we're covering it with gravel. So I'm not sure if there's some way that we can change this, maybe have somebody collect the moss or something, but moss works better than gravel as for erosion. So I think it's something that we should look at. That's one, that's just a comment. A question that I have is with the cameras that we have for security, from a different meeting that we had, it sounded like we're using facial recognition. I don't know, but I want to know for sure. If it is, we should have some kind of a contract with the members here.
Yeah, that's probably a little misnomer. If Robert, correct me if I'm wrong. What it does have the ability is if someone's wearing a black jacket or red hat, we can put that search in for those type of items, not the face itself, right?
I can search by facial recognition.
Oh, you can. See? He's the IT guy. I'm just one who asks the questions and finds out why it's happening.
I have to make sure some of my uploaded to the camera. So I am taking video of that person, or I can tell if to find someone wearing a red shirt, blue jeans, or I can tell to find all red shirts.
Right. I knew we could do that.
So I believe that information should be held secure.
100%.
But there should be,
Yeah, it's encrypted. I can tell you that.
but I'm talking about the information in the future. Who's going to have access to that information? We should,
There's one person that has access to that information.
and will that always be, is what I'm saying. It's just. I'm
Yeah,
just
no, good
putting this
point.
out
It
there.
sort of goes into our IT thing of saying, how do these things flow at a corporate level,
It
you know, with
never
the
is.
company, not with the individual, right?
In all businesses, if
Yep.
they use facial recognition, there is a contract between the people, or at least the people know about.
Right.
where
Yeah, they had the big sticker, we are under surveillance.
Well, not even that. It's just who's going to own that.
Right.
That's property.
Yep.
You know, that information.
Yeah, we'll
Okay, so
check into
then,
that.
My last question is on the budget. It seemed like on your, on the slides, it says we're already investing in 8-point-something million. So
Mhm.
you're saying that that's just in very low risk. So
Yes.
when we change this, is there a percentage that we're going to put in higher risk? And what happens in the worst case scenario? Because right now it seems like the stock market and everything is very vulnerable. In worst case scenario, what is there a cutoff, or what's going to happen? Or is that money that it seems like there's a lot of hands going into it? Is that money going to be put off to the residents here? Can you explain that? And also, is it just a board that's voting on it, or do the people here get to vote?
No, you'll have the opportunity to vote on it. Did you want to talk about the
Yeah,
restrictions
well,
or what we
the-
can invest?
It will be up to the board to vote on the policy after review from members and the recommendations from the permanent committees. As far as the current investments, they are in mostly short-term investments. The amount to go into long-term is still under consideration with a recommendation to come from the finance committee, along with the board in conjunction with the financial advisor. Right now, we're looking initially at maybe somewhere between 1.5 and $2 million. Now, keep in mind that if you look at the historical cash flow, along with the projected cash flow of the reserves moving out 5 and 10 years, there's a certain portion of funds that are always in there. They're always going to be there. There's
Mhm.
something to fall back on, but they can be in long-term investments and not just something because we don't need them in the next 30 or 60 days.
Right.
So in doing so, there's a certain portion that we can take and get a higher rate of return on that will help offset the inflation impact that we have.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Sharsik, and I have lived here, been an owner for 31 years. And I have served on the board and many other committees. And my personal opinion and my recommendation would be, we are large enough now that we should have a chief financial officer. It's been great having the personnel that we have had, but the time has come for a chief financial officer to be hired. I think it would be money well spent to monitor our budgeting, our operations financially, and also our investments.
Thank you for your recommendation, Nancy. Hey,
Hello,
hi.
I'm a newcomer. How
Welcome.
y'all doing today? Joe Laps, I've been here, oh, thank you. Almost 2 years. It's my first board meeting, so bear with me, but I do have a couple questions.
Did you say Joe?
Joe, yes.
Joe, welcome.
With the rebrand, and we've actually been contacted by a few people about the interest of trying to incorporate families. What specifically are any initiatives being implemented to encourage families for Coniston Falls and involving the current families that are here?
I'll let you take that one, but I just want to say something real quick. So are you aware that we have a kids club?
Yes, my wife's been meeting with Elena over the last
Okay,
couple
good.
weeks.
All right. So Elena is always looking for ways to get some of the families with young kids more involved in different activities. Of course, the pandemic, had her hands tied for a while, but she is looking to, she's doing a lot of planning and whatnot. She's also working with Jim to upgrade and replace some of the existing playground equipment. And then in terms of the demographic surveys and information that we picked up on younger families, just having improved cell service and internet capability, we're hoping will encourage families because they'll have the flexibility to work remotely and not have to commute somewhere. Did you have anything else because Shirley's on the brand marketing task force, so.
Pretty much covered it.
Okay.
Jim has something.
Yeah, and then Joe, you said, right? Yeah. Okay. We are working with the with our brand and marketing company out of Asheville for other different and unique ways to communicate potentially to family type buyers, because we've done either no advertising or traditional advertising. You look historically back, for people that lived here a little longer too, that many, especially outside the community, you mentioned Coniston, they all think it's a retirement community, and that's all it is. And so that is going to take some time to try to break that thought process, especially in sort of the local crowd that's been here for more than say 5 or 10 years. They still think of Coniston as, I'm talking about outside of Coniston, as a retirement community. So we're going to have to do some, Facebook type stuff, potentially Instagram, some of the other opportunities we have to try to break that traditional thought process, and obviously use some, how do I word this? Different talent within our marketing and branding materials that just don't show a bunch of old people like me walking around, you know what I mean? So it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to take some time, but we are working on finding ways to try to break through those streets and barriers to have a way to produce, hopefully, some more younger families. And I know, Looking Glass and Coniston Fellows Realty, everyone's working on different things to help make, this more attractive. Not that it isn't attractive or wasn't attractive, but selling our unique opportunities of why this is a good family-oriented place to bring up your kids.
And one other thing, Joe, I just wanted to add to that. At the last board meeting, I know you didn't attend it if you watched the recording. We showed a video clip, just one of the videos that we're putting together for the marketing initiative, and it did have some younger kids in it, right?
As many as possible.
They're not paid actors. They actually live here. So.
Unfortunately, it showed a lot of people like me too, but that's a whole nother problem.
Yeah, we're very encouraged, and I will say this entire community has been an absolute blessing to our family.
Oh,
The
that's great to
outreach
hear.
of the people and our neighbors have just been overwhelming. The kindness, and we love it here.
Yay.
But also, I want to encourage others of my same demographic to be a part of this. But one of the things too that I was wondering if it would be considered is as far as meeting times. Obviously, I work full time. I have to leave work to come to this meeting. If my wife were to come, our kids, it's right at time when you're picking kids up from school at 3 o'clock. It's not ideal. They just texted me. They're down in the library right now. Don't bring them up here yet.
No, good point, Joe. And pre-pandemic, that when we were having more public meetings, we did start changing. We sort of trying to, satisfy everybody you can, but like we would have one meeting 1 month, we'd have it at 3 or 1 or whatever, and then the next month we might do it at 6 or whatever. Just so, I can't say we're always going to do it at 6 because some of the other generation doesn't want to be here at 6. So, but we at least need to, move them around a little bit so that people have the opportunity at least 2 or 3 times a year or more to come to these particular type of meetings. So hopefully we'll get back to a similar schedule like that soon, because you're not the only one, unfortunately, that works.
And we encourage.
I encourage my community to do them at 3, so I don't have to go to them, but, but I understand what you're saying.
And we always encourage members if they weren't able to attend in person, and especially those that are in Florida right now and they haven't come back yet.
Don't talk about
to-
those.
To watch it on YouTube. And certainly if you have any follow-up questions, or even if you have suggestions that we may not have thought of, please feel free to email us.
Does our current setup by streaming through YouTube, does it provide an immediate Q&A?
I don't.
We're
think
not
that's
using it.
now, Right?
We had a person that was willing to send it here with the live stream and the live chat. And we could have
Yes, so we do have the capability.
live cameras and links and
Not condemning you. I understand. Many hats.
Yeah, so that is another opportunity as well, that we have a potential of doing as well for these type of meetings.
actually a question here.
One of the other things that also is available, 'cause a lot of times people come to a meeting like this and you either think of something, shortly thereafter or the next day. I can tell you that, I'm not perfect, but, I try to respond to emails the same day or at least by the next day anyway, depending on what the question or comment is. Sometimes it takes a little more thought process than other times it's like, don't respond right away because it's an emotional type thing and you need to step back a little bit. And the board will also, they accept, comments and questions on a weekly basis. So those are collected on a weekly basis and then to Sharon at the CFPOA at either ConnesseeFalls.com or Comporium.net. And then they have a monthly person who's responsible for responding to those comments or questions. So it normally takes a week or, 3 days to 5 days to get a response back if it's directly to the board. But we try to get those, responses back as quick as possible.
Thank you. And
Yep.
last question, there's been a lot of discussion amongst some of the members that I've met and, with the project at Atagahi, the ones that you've talked about with the wellness center and the pool. Can you describe the process of how those come about? Is it based on the surveys that are ongoing and then it gains traction by
Right.
vote, or how does that work?
So they're all a little different level, right? So the A&W, obviously a huge amount of money, goes through a lot different process. So the Activity and Wellness Center has been a board initiative and community initiative going back almost 5 years. We chose at this time not to sort of rehash history, but there was a full-blown presentation on an A&W or Activity Wellness Center given in, I guess it would have been 3 years ago, that 2 months later got shut down by the pandemic, basically. So it was actually, we had the presentation, we were ready to hopefully in the next 30 days go out for a vote. So it had been talked about for, who knows, probably I wasn't here, maybe 5 or 6 years before that presentation. And that was just strictly sort of like you said, we had done at least 3 different full-blown surveys sent to every member with responses and collected all that data. And there was significant, like 60, I think it was over 65% supported doing some type of improvement for activity and wellness. So that's sort of where that ended up. And then it just sort of got its own traction and kept moving forward. The smaller projects normally sort of go through a more informal process in the sense of when we normally have meetings like this where they're, every month or every other month, it sort of goes through the same traction period. People come up and make comments or questions like you may be doing. And then other people say, oh yeah, we agree with that. And then we might do a short little survey to get some feedback. And then we sort of say, okay, that's something that sounds good. It seems like it's got a lot of support. Let's put that in the budget for next year. The facility planning committee meets on a regular basis monthly, and they submit what they call the facility master plan, which is done in, I think it's due in May, June, which then basically is the project list, lack of a better word, for the upcoming year. They prioritize, here's the things we think which should be done this year, or what I say, next year's budget, maybe the following year's budget or the 5-year plan, and they prioritize it. And then that's available to the members. We send an e-blast out that anyone who's interested in the facility master plan, please go to the website and read it. And here's what and it has pictures and descriptions of what the projects would or wouldn't be. and then they go from there. And then you have other projects that are normally what we call sort of infrastructure projects that are part of the Ottagahi Park really is part of the infrastructure project where we're just going in, it looked bad, obviously, but the reality is we widened the road 4 feet. And that was strictly from a safety perspective. And it was actually at the last public meeting before Omicron that came up where, we had a disabled person who, was very scared about negotiating his way around Ottagahi. That was a small little road for regular trucks and our trucks especially. So that's how that one came about. All the rest of it was all ongoing projects that had already been in the plan, the basketball court being resurfaced, the volleyball, sand volleyball pit, and then just the additional pavilion. So those had come over just over the last couple of years through the facility master plan.
Yeah, and I'm all for, renovations and doing those things. And it's really about, I'd love to get behind it and be a cheerleader and, know what's going.
Right.
When we were first approached about it and saw that things were going on, it was like they're adding a pavilion. I
Right.
didn't know any of the other stuff. And then so when other things were going, I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was going on.
Right.
And so are there considerations for proactive communication to say new buyers as they come in, like, here's some of the things that are coming, as being a new owner, here's some of the things that are coming, because we weren't privy to say some of those things that were done pre-pandemic.
Right. That's a good
And that
point.
way
Yeah.
that those are things that we can, get behind and not find out about it later, to be like, oh. So are there any considerations for those types of communication?
Yeah. I mean, I guess some buyers do ask us for information, whether they want us, they ask us if we have a strategic plan or a master plan, which we do. And we tell them that we have that and we will provide that to them if they ask. Printing it out wise, it's, there's a lot of paper, but we could link them to those via the website or via, a link. Maybe that's just something we should just proactively do as opposed to letting people ask for it. But then normally once people are here, they have that ability to go there and find all that information out as well on the private side of the website. So the information's there. It's just a question of how you find it or how you want to communicate it. Right. Yeah.
I mean, in addition to that, Joe, excuse me, I'm sorry. I don't know if you get the general manager's news and views and the board business letters, because every month we send out a little, newsletter. It's usually when I write it, it's always more than one page, but I always get yelled at and I have to cut it down. But more or less, it's pretty much, this is what's going on and this is what you can expect. So we try to do that to maintain some degree of transparency, but I totally understand what you're saying. Sometimes you'd rather know to prepare.
Right. And to your example is, I didn't know to the level of extent of what was involved in the Ottagahi Park until
Yeah.
we got the email that said, here's everything, the beach volleyball,
Yep.
the
Yep.
basketball courts, all those things, all of which, I'm for it.
No,
right?
I understand.
But I just, to know that after the fact, we've been here almost 2 years and
Sure.
to not have any information on that unless we specifically ask for it. But if we don't
Yeah,
know,
no.
we don't know to ask. So
No,
just
point is well
asking for that
taken.
proactive communication.
Yep.
I think that's all.
Okay,
I should,
thank you.
John, do you have a comment that as part?
Budget is online, all major capital projects are listed.
Right.
But the scope's not all in there. We might have a line item, right?
Right.
But the scope as far
The
as what's-
facilities master plan, though, is out there. And keep in mind also, Joe, some of the stuff that's being done isn't necessarily a new project or initiative. Some of it is
With
just,
maintenance.
regular day-to-day
Right,
maintenance
like
that
the-
may look like, a project. But again, your point is very well
Yeah.
taken.
Yeah, like the basketball court is a maintenance item. It wouldn't even been listed, to be honest with you. Because it's already there and all we're doing is replacing the asphalt,
Right.
so,
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
all right, thanks, Joe.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Veazey, and I'd like to welcome Joe. And he triggered something when he was talking about making connections with for our kids. And, obviously privacy is very important. And the woman that is doing the Kids Club is doing just a great job. My daughter has both her email and phone number. And why do I say my daughter? Because she's bringing my 9-year-old grandson here Thursday night. And it'd be really good if we get some way by age to make those connections. And I'm not sure what that is or how that looks and still maintain the privacy, but she might know, in that group of 9 to 11-year-olds, there are 7 kids in the community that Colin might be able to pair up with and go fishing and do stuff like that. So just food for thought as we continue to process to expand the kid connection with our community, because that is really crucial. And the only other comment, the reason I get up here before he had mentioned that is, as you went to that aerial view of the Health and Wellness Center,
Yep.
Where exactly is that footprint going to be?
Right out
Right
that window.
into that
Right
parking lot
there.
then?
Yep.
Between this building, you have that big mound right there and the berm, lack of a better word, the berm, and then the parking lot on the other side.
Okay,
So basically, the entry from the clubhouse side to the new potential activity wellness center pretty much lines up almost with the porte cochere by the clubhouse here entering here. So one corner of the building would be almost right there at the clubhouse entrance, and it would be like a V shape. Yeah, let's put it up. Oh, there you go.
okay, so I'm still missing that. So right now, that building that is a V, that is where we're at? No,
That's the new building.
that's the new building. Okay,
The one up top is the current clubhouse. We're right here. That's a Cherokee room.
okay.
And then you can see how this would be the entry for the potential new activity and wellness center, which is pretty much lines up in the center of that building.
And the pool to that is
The pool would be there, right over there.
over here. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we should have like the little north, south, east, west compass on there. Yeah. Okay, well, we appreciate everyone coming out today. Hopefully we will be back to normal in the sense of being able to have meetings like this more on a regular basis in person. I can say from my perspective, doing a Zoom meeting like this is not easy, and getting the back and forth communication live is a lot better than doing it remotely. So hopefully we can continue this process going forward. Thank you very much.
Appreciate everyone coming out. Thanks so much for joining us.